Natsume, a young girl who tags along with her father on an artifact investigation mission out of curiosity, doesn't fare well. She loses her father and her right arm, but she survives and dreams of fighting and making a difference. Fast forward to when Natsume is about to graduate from high school and accept a job as a tanker supporting the Gears, who fight monsters called Gadol. They all live on Deca, dence, a huge mobile fortress, and have access to advanced technology. Natsume intended to be a soldier, but it seems that her missing arm disqualifies her. As a result, she is sent to work cleaning dirty, difficult armor for a melancholy man named Kaburagi. Before Natsume departs, she befriends a pet, harmless Gadol, that Natsume names Pipe. Later, Kaburagi is working a mysterious side job for a peculiar boss that involves taking chips from people. Eventually, Decadence runs into a Gadol attack party led by an enormous Mega Gadol, Guyland, that resembles a leviathan, and is surrounded by a bevy of bizarre candy-colored Gadols. The battle below actually doesn't seem to be going well when Kaburagi drops in with Natsume, but he manages to grab a flight back from one of the dead gears and begins to kill the smaller Gadols. Natsume and Kaburagi are still outside when the other maintenance men end up falling off the side of the fortress. The crew of General Monado goes through a lot of inspections and complex technological methods that basically change the giant fort into a cannon. After transforming the fortress into a massive mass driver cannon in the shape of a fist, they wait until the Gadol is as close as possible before firing and killing the monster. Later, a city is shown with many cyborgs that resembles a submarine, as the voice congratulates them on defeating the enemy. Here comes the twist, where Kaburagi's human form is only an avatar, and Decadence is a vast and elaborate entertainment complex run by the all-power Solid Quake Corporation. In a prolonged flashback to 7 years ago, we see Kaburagi and his elite ranker team. Since they are only avatars, they all have unusual skin and hair colors, unlike the tankers who are all real human beings. The Gears are all like him, robot-like beings that play Decadence with their avatars to gain experience and strive to be top rank. Kaburagi is among the top 5 in all of Decadence, but he feels as though he has achieved his pinnacle. In contrast, his young and ambitious teammate Mikey is steadily moving up the ranks, but Mikey is found cheating. All of Kaburagi's other teammates were imprisoned for refusing their next assignment, while Mikey was dropped and the ranker team was disbanded. Kaburagi chooses not to challenge the system today in order to live, to possibly challenge it another day. Due to the nature of Kaburagi's new job, he has been demoted to armor repair with the tankers, but that is just his day job. By night, he will be a recovery agent collecting the chips from people considered to be bugs that could harm the system. When it comes to Natsume, she persistently begs Kaburagi to train her to fight. She even blackmailed him with a photo of Pipe she brought along. One day, she discovers him sneaking about in the shadows and catches him removing a chip from someone. Of course, not knowing his tale, and as far as she knows, he's just robbing him because he's hard up for cash. Kaburagi is persuaded by Natsume to make a commitment not to rob anyone else and to quit discussing how it is over for him. She has no idea that he is telling the truth because he has been purposefully avoiding breathing in oxyone, or rebooting, which will eventually cause his body to shut down and die slowly. Natsume was always thought to be another bug by Kaburagi, but when he scans her face, he discovers no data among the current population of tankers. And a deeper search reveals that she was listed as deceased way back when her father passed away and she lost her arm, meaning she is not only a bug in the system, but also one that is not under its control because there is no chip in her. Natsume isn't going to let failure after failure or naysaying peers keep her from learning how to ride the wave of getting all zones. And when he eventually takes the Oxyone and thanks her for saving him from an early death, he decides to teach her and show her about the Posh Gears base. While reviewing a film of Natsume's training, Kaburagi observes that her clumsy artificial arms are adjusting her flying device too slowly, which could be fatal in a real battle against the more formidable Gadol. In the middle of the film review, Hugin contacts him and inquires as to why he hasn't processed a bug in 13 days. When Kaburagi returns to his human avatar, Natsume is at his door with an outfit for Pipes so he can move around outside. When Natsume informs Kaburagi that her old arm is a problem, he takes her to a weapon shop and equips her with a new 5-fingered mode. Hugin shows the representation of world history, in which cyborgs eventually replaced humans as the dominant species on Earth. He suggests that failing to keep bugs under control caused the humans' downfall. She's eager to try it out in the field, but when the Godal alarm goes off, Decadence hits a sinkhole and stops, causing an earthquake, sending Pipe, Kaburagi, and Natsume flying, and asks Commander Minato for location support, while Natsume runs through the tunnel and into the massive cavern where she can see the battle between the two factions. Natsume is asked to leave by Kaburagi, but she discovers a weapon and arms herself instead. She observes gears engaged in combat at a spine, but they are ultimately dispatched. Regaining her calm, she recalls Kaburagi's training and fights the Eva spine, killing it. Kaburagi finds Pipe, who is about to be devoured by a megalodon. Natsume gets to reach in time and kill the megalodon. A rolling Darumas then emerges and tries to get past the gear's protection. However, when Kurenai and her company arrive, it is quickly defeated. Kurenai is amazed by Natsume and wonders which team she belongs to, but Natsume clarifies that she is weak and not a member of the Power. Natsume gladly accepts Kurenai's invitation to the Power, despite his disagreement. A new event begins with a snow battle in the bitter cold and a massive combat in which they would have to clear a Godal nest and Godal Alpha. Kurenai see that Natsume's boss is Kaburagi and is startled to see him here, wondering if he had returned to active service. Kurenai briefs the people and instructs them on how to proceed after the humans are informed of the location of the nest. Minato speaks with Kaburagi and tells him that other cyborgs enjoyed his battle. He also informs him that the plot for the upcoming event is an impossible mission in which every gear will perish because defeating Godal Alpha is impossible. Decadence will be plunged into despair, even for S-class gears, but then legendary heroes like Kaburagi will reappear. Natsume is put on Team 6 with Mindy, Mendi, and Mundi after Kaburagi recognizes that everyone in the A-class and lower will perish in the next war. Fate attempts to speak with Natsume, but Natsume ignores her since she knows she won't listen. When Kaburagi visits Natsume, he notices that she is getting ready to fight. He makes an effort to dissuade her and explain why. Natsume refuses to listen and wants to engage in the war, since doing so will bring about world peace. As he tries to persuade her to go, he breaks her flying gear and leaves. To defeat the Godal Alpha, Natsume departs Decadence and travels into the fog. Along the journey, they encounter numerous Godals, but the S-Class easily dispatches them even in the fog. Finally, Unit 6 and Natsume arrive at a cavern, where they find dead gears and the Godal Alpha. They try to engage it, but the Godal easily destroys their tankers before killing them. Furious, Natsume charges at him, but he outmaneuvered her and is about to kill her. However, Mindy sacrifices herself and saves Natsume. Infuriated, Natsume charges at the Godal again, but this time she manages to hit him with a needle. To their surprise, the Godal removes the needle, closes the wound, and then throws the needle back at Kaburagi, who takes advantage of the chance to grab Natsume and go, claiming that he is powerless to stop him. Natsume wants to assist her friends, so when Kaburagi returns with her, they encounter the Godal Alpha. After killing the Godal Alpha, the fog clears, and the gears can see the nest clearly. But just then, a mountain-sized Godal Stargate appears, breaking the continuity. Minato tries to stop Kaburagi by telling him to flee because the Godal won't pursue him and that he will ruin the plot. When Minato activates Decadence, he asks the S-Class to buy them some time until Intercept Form is finished. When Intercept Form is finished, however, the Stargate is about to shoot another energy blast. Kaburagi sees a weakness and manages to injure it and cause it to tilt and miss with its blast. The Stargate then extends its head towards the Decadence, but the Decadence shoots its own energy blast. The tankers are astonished to learn that there are numerous additional Godals out there after believing that a peace has arrived. Hugin phones Kaburagi in the meantime and threatens to scrap him since he thinks the world is full of bugs. Munin tells him, however, that someone must have stepped in because he is now being sent along with other cyborgs to the Bug Correctional Facility. After being released from prison, Kaburagi begins working in Syria to fix his bugs. When he meets Sarkozy, Sarkozy tells that there weren't any effective Godal assaults until the plot was changed to include Kaburagi. Sarkozy takes Kaburagi to the head of the bugs that can enter Decadence. Kaburagi is surprised to see Donatello, who tells him that he hasn't forgiven him and hates him for accepting to work for the system and becoming an armor repairer. You may be wondering how they know that there are people down there who can still log into the game at Kaburagi's request. Donatello challenges him to a death dive while standing over the Revolving Feasts Crusher's tank. With only a shovel, they must push each other down as they engage in combat while being reminded that there are regulations and he must abide by them. Donatello is defeated by Kaburagi, but because Donatello rejects his victory, both of them fall. Then, Donatello concedes defeat and takes Kaburagi to the place where he can log into the game. Jill cautions him that he cannot use his old account and that he will be a stranger to this tanker girl. Kaburagi accepts it and logs in, but is surprised that there is a quest involving battle. He realizes that it is an attack and heads into the tanker. As he discovers a breach in the tanker and Godal's entering it, he battles them outside, but some of them manage to get inside. Kaburagi chases them and kills one of them, then Natsume appears and kills another. They continue and manage to stop the Godal onslaught, but they suffer numerous tanker fatalities. Kaburagi discovers Minato when he is having a smoke and praises him, thinking that he is the reason he wasn't scrapped. Kaburagi asks Minato about the hole and explains its stagecraft as the tanker population is rising, and doing quests like this manages to lower their numbers. Minato was surprised that Kaburagi managed to log into the game and wondered how. After speaking with Natsume and witnessing her weep about how hard she must work to stay alive, Kaburagi decides to tear it all down. He logs out and goes to Donatello, where he tells him he will throw a big party and invites him as he plans on destroying the Godal factory. Pipe recognizes him and jumps on him after seeing him. Kaburagi advises they breach the factory's barrier using debauchery, but Jill adds that everyone with an avatar or tanker chip would have their operations stopped and terminated. Kaburagi says that there is an avatar without a chip, and is certain that Minato has not terminated his avatar. Kaburagi speculates that they still need to ask Minato where his avatar is, so Jill agrees to look into it. She contacts Minato and informs him that she has heard he has an illegal avatar collection. He denies this, and she follows up by tracking Hugin, who she then asks to accompany her into the Decadence. The group enters the room where avatars are stored, because Hugin had heard that Minato kept illegal avatars there. At the last second, however, Kaburagi is able to reach his storage and take it. Jill explains that they will need one more person, and Kaburagi says he has someone in mind. Natsume is discovered by Kaburagi, who informs her that only he and she can leave in order to stop the Godal. He warns Natsume that it's risky, but she joyfully agrees. When Jill phones him to let him know that he has a visitor, Kaburagi is astonished to discover Minato there. Kaburagi tells him that if he destroys the factory, he will put an end to the system and Decadence. Kaburagi is envious of tankers because they have the freedom to think for themselves and choose their own path without being constrained by the system. When Minato assumes the pleasure toy is Kaburagi's creation and wonders why he stole his avatar, Kaburagi explains he can't stand the system jerking them anymore. Turkey attempts to persuade Sarkozy to join him in turning Donatella and Kaburagi because they can't defeat the system, and will only cause all of them to be scrapped, while doing this will allow them to be heroes and save everyone. Kaburagi and Natsume prepare and then depart for their mission. Jill instructs Kaburagi once more, this time stating the entire procedure again more carefully. Kaburagi and Natsume arrive at the lake and move towards the factory while navigating the invisible shield. In the meantime, the bugs begin to burn the Godal feces, and the cyborgs are forced to activate the ventilation, releasing the foul smoke that gathers in the lake and causing some trouble for those in the factory. When Kaburagi and Natsume arrive at the workplace, he is shocked to see Munin and Hugin waiting for him. Hugin advises Kaburagi to return to his real body and is aware of the tanker bug attack. As Jill realizes that Sarkozy and Turkey have betrayed them, she rescues Donatella from his debauchery and orders him to prevent the guards from getting to the login devices. Hugin talks with Kaburagi while Donatella finds the guards and begins having fun beating them. Jill hacks the game and thwarts Hugin's vision by producing clones of Kaburagi and Natsume. In his final moments, Sarkozy thinks back to how Kaburagi talked about pushing himself to the limit. Motivated, he uses his special booze, consumes some burning excrement, and dives into the feces pit, setting off a massive explosion that destroys the reactor at the facility. Hugin and Kaburagi are diverted by Natsume, who then manages to escape him as they arrive to the Godal genocide system and pull the lever that causes everyone to begin perishing one by one. Kaburagi informs her that everything in the world, including Godal, is artificial. Staff from the factory attempt to flee, but one of them is stung by a small Godal, and they later perish in the elevator. Kaburagi explains that the world and Godals are created by the cyborgs, and that the Decadence is like a game for them. Upon hearing this, Natsume faints. Natsume becomes enraged and claims that Kaburagi betrayed her. That evening, the tankers rejoice, but Natsume doesn't want to join them. Kaburagi explains that the humans can't know the truth and that her father was coming close to the truth and was branded as a bug and slain. Hugin enters the tank area, but his search turns up nothing, and he is confident that Natsume is a bug. In the meantime, Godal emerges from the corpses of the deceased employees and starts to feed on them as the guards descend to the detention center. In order to prevent the remaining cyborgs from being identified as bugs, Donatella, Jill, and Kaburagi assisted them in making their way to the surface. When Natsume returned home and discovered a note from Kaburagi, he explained that he had intended to die, but after meeting her, he became enamored with how she lived and decided to continue living and change the rules of this world. Natsume then went to his house. She yells at him because she can't tolerate that. She tells him she's prepared to do it and that she'll work with him to break those regulations. As he accepts, Hugin arrives from behind and stabs him in the back. The escaping Gadol have eaten enough bodies and have grown enormous. Meanwhile, the cyborgs are shocked that there is a survival Gadol and discovers it lacks a chip, so the system can't control it. Hugin then notices the request for decadence activation and declares it to be another bug before attempting to kill Natsume. Nevertheless, Kaburagi reappears in a different body and stabs him to death. Natsume awakens, and Kaburagi explains that he is in a different avatar. The system has designated the unknown Gadol as Omega, and Monado has been instructed to use the decadence to destroy it. They fire the blood-sucking harpoons at Omega, but because of previous damage to the tank, they can only use 60% of the decadence cannon. However, Omega manages to catch and stop the attack. He then rips the decadence's arm. The system then instructs the employment of a solid cannon while they charge it. Omega changes as it gets ready to launch a high-density Oxyon energy burst. Omega and a solid cannon both fire, but Omega survives the blast and manages to damage the cyborg base in space. Omega then passes out. Hugin, Moon, Merge, and Munin tell Monado and the others that Decadence Dome will be closed, and facilities will be reverted along with Omega via the spatial compression device. A 6-hour countdown begins, and cyborgs are instructed to log out. Monado wonders what they should do, but Munin explains nothing is required from him and only the system needs to be preserved to make recovery possible. Monado conveys the scenario to Kaburagi when they speak. Jill joins in and adds her thoughts. Although there is a danger that it can be revealed that the user was a member of the team that created Decadence Core, Kaburagi decides to use it. When Jill prepares Kaburagi for logging into Decadence, Natsume notices smaller Gadols coming out of Omega. The gears begin combating the Gadols. Monado follows Kaburagi inside the core room and attempts to persuade him not to endanger his life. When Monado reveals he is no longer confident in the system or himself, Natsume discovers the escaping cyborgs. Jill explains they are cabaret comrades, and that's how the gears actually look. Natsume finds them cute. Kaburagi informs him that he was saved by a bug and made the choice to make his own decisions. Kaburagi wants Monado to assist him, since he needs a second person to connect. Monado offers to assist Kaburagi in operating the Decadence after realizing he had anticipated his arrival. Jill informs Natsume that the connection is successful and that Kaburagi has logged into Decadence, but since Decadence is immobile, they are unsure of what to do. Natsume suggests they create a weapon for Kaburagi, and Jill explains that it is much larger than her arm, before realizing she can use older Decadence components in his zone to construct it. The cyborgs hear that Decadence will be shutting down its services, and that they have issued a final mission. Hearing that, all cyborgs decide to log in for a final time. Natsume decides to visit Kaburagi as to why he can't activate the Decadence. Natsume contacts Monado, who issues a final mission requesting the gears to fill the scattered Decadence parts with Oxyon. As Kaburagi awakens in a wrecked town, the system says that it is a representation of a place where humans previously lived. Nevertheless, no creature can survive there, thus the system is perplexed as to why he suffers given that Omega can fight Decadence. Kaburagi claims that it isn't a reason to give up, and he wants the administrative authority for Decadence. He asks the system if she is afraid of change, and remarks that the system only adapts in response to the results of events, but he will show her what it means to live. He then takes control of Decadence as it activates, and Monado informs him of the situation and asks him to gather the dispersed parts. The blood-sucking harpoons are fired, activating Omega's zone. Kaburagi then releases light-guiding pseudo-fibers towards the components and begins gathering them. Donatella charges at Omega's mouth as it is about to fire an energy blast, causing Omega's energy to disperse rather than hit Decadence. After the Decadence arm is finished using the spare parts, they fire the cannon, but because they are out of Oxyon, they are unable to raise the power, therefore Omega is not defeated. Natsume explains she broke the arm he made for her and thanks him for everything as his light goes out. 3 years later, Monado had become Supreme Administrator, with Jill being his secretary going over some of the data. When Jill updated Kaburagi for Decadence, she grabbed a sample from him as a backup, which is when Monado inquired about a red file. This made Jill realize she could use the sample to restore Kaburagi. There has been created a Decadence metropolis where cyborgs can visit and amuse themselves in numerous areas. The tank was converted into a neighborhood where tankers and cyborgs can live. Natsume began her field exploration business, Natsume Tours, where she leads several visitors on outdoor exploration excursions. In the end, she sees Kaburagi walking in his avatar towards her, where she rushes to hug him. Thank you for seeing my channel, So Anna Some Anime Stuff. Today, Deca Dence. Remember to hit the like and subscribe button. That's a wrap up for today. Till then, peace out.